Hello, dear viewers. In a world full of mysteries and untold stories, there are those that can change our perception of the past. Today, we will uncover one of the most intriguing and little-known pages of history, the story of Claudia Procula, the wife of Pontius Pilate, who witnessed the fateful events surrounding Jesus. In a time when history was shaped by the clash of empires and the struggle of faiths, there existed a woman whose name would be nearly forgotten by most, but whose experience could have changed the world's understanding of Jesus. Claudia Procula, wife of the Roman governor Pontius Pilate, lived through the trial and crucifixion of Jesus, and while history has barely acknowledged her presence, her account offers a rare and fascinating perspective on the events that have echoed across millennia. Imagine, for a moment, a letter. Not just any letter, but one penned by Claudia herself, describing the man who would become a symbol of love, sacrifice, and resurrection. This letter, lost to time and rediscovered only recently, offers us an extraordinary window into the mind of a Roman woman of high standing, caught in the midst of world-altering events. In this document, Claudia describes the figure of Jesus in vivid detail, not as a mere man, but as a presence, a force that seemed to transcend the confines of human understanding. She spoke of his eyes, deep and unwavering, the calm strength that radiated from his every word and gesture. There was something extraordinary about him, she confessed, something that went beyond his miracles, beyond the tales told by his followers. His quiet dignity in the face of judgment, his serene acceptance of his fate, stirred something in her soul, something she could neither explain nor resist. Claudia, born into a life of privilege and Roman tradition, had been raised to uphold the values of the empire. She understood power, order, and the necessity of keeping the peace. But in Jerusalem, the heart of turmoil and unrest, she found herself torn. As the wife of Pilate, she was a silent observer of the politics and struggles that shaped the region. Yet, her role in history was not to be passive. Claudia was witnessing the convergence of destiny itself, a destiny in which her husband, the man who held the fate of Jesus in his hands, would make a decision that would not only seal the fate of Jesus but also change her life forever. The tensions in Jerusalem were palpable. The cries for justice, the religious fervor, and the political intrigue created an atmosphere so thick it could be cut with a knife. Pilate, a man driven by the Roman need for control, saw Jesus as a threat. But Claudia could not reconcile the image of this man with that of a criminal. She had heard of his miracles, healed the sick, raised the dead, and seen the reverence in his followers' eyes. But more than anything, she was struck by the profound peace that emanated from him, even as he was condemned. One fateful night, Claudia had a dream. It was not just any dream. It was a vision, a divine warning, as she would later come to understand. In the dream, she saw Jesus, surrounded by an otherworldly light. His face was calm, yet marked by the pain of impending suffering. He walked toward her, as if with a heavy weight on his shoulders, but there was no fear in his eyes. He seemed to know exactly what was coming, and in that moment, Claudia knew that something sacred was unfolding, something far beyond her comprehension. Upon waking, her heart raced with urgency. She knew that she had to act, to intervene somehow, to prevent the inevitable. With trembling hands, she approached Pilate, trying to convey the weight of her vision, the deep sense of justice she felt. "Have nothing to do with this righteous man," she pleaded, but Pilate, pragmatic and skeptical, dismissed her. He was a man of reason, not one who would be swayed by dreams and premonitions. His eyes told her that he was trapped, caught between the demands of the people and his duty as governor. She could see that he was conflicted, but his duty to the empire would ultimately outweigh any moral considerations. As the trial of Jesus began, Claudia found herself unable to stand aside. She watched, powerless, as Pilate tried to appease the bloodthirsty crowd, offering to release Jesus as part of the Passover tradition. But the mob was relentless. They demanded Barabbas, not the man who had healed the sick and preached peace. Claudia's heart sank. She could feel the weight of what was about to unfold, and she knew that her husband would not escape the consequences of this decision. Pilate, in an effort to absolve himself of blame, symbolically washed his hands before the crowd. But to Claudia, this act did not represent innocence. It was a sign of his helplessness, his acknowledgement that he could not control the course of events. Jesus was led away to be crucified, and with each step, Claudia's soul was torn. She had tried, she had begged, but in the end, nothing had changed. The tragic outcome she had feared was now an undeniable reality. She retreated to her chambers, where the weight of guilt and sorrow consumed her. She had witnessed injustice on a scale she could not fathom, and yet, she felt powerless. As the hours passed and the sun began to set, she couldn't help but feel that this moment was not merely the end of a man's life, but the closing of an entire chapter of human history. But there was something deeper, something that unsettled her. She knew this was not the end. Not for Jesus, not for herself. Days later, the rumors began. At first, they were whispers, impossible to believe. Jesus had risen. Some said his body had disappeared from the tomb, others claimed to have seen him alive, speaking with his disciples. The stories grew, spreading like wildfire through Jerusalem. Claudia could not ignore the feeling that these accounts, no matter how unbelievable, were real. Her heart began to shift. The man she had seen condemned, the man she had tried to save, was more than just a prophet or a teacher. He was something divine, something far beyond the human understanding of power and fate. Claudia, though not a follower, began to feel a transformation in her own heart. The teachings of Jesus, the love, the forgiveness, the humility, these ideals were no longer abstract to her. They were a new truth, a call to a life of greater meaning, greater purpose. The resurrection was not just a miracle, it was a sign of redemption, not just for Jesus, but for everyone who had witnessed his suffering. Claudia Procula's journey was not one of immediate conversion, but of gradual realization. She saw in Jesus not just a man, but a message that transcended time and space. The events she had witnessed had shattered her understanding of the world, but they had also opened her heart to something greater than the empire she had once so fiercely defended. Her life would never be the same. Jesus' death had left a mark on her soul, but his resurrection offered a new beginning. The love and forgiveness he preached had become a guiding light in her life, a light that could not be extinguished, no matter how dark the world around her seemed. In the end, Claudia's story is not one of simple tragedy, but of transformation, a journey from the corridors of power to the quiet recesses of the soul, where she found truth, redemption, and a new purpose that would carry her through the rest of her life.